Numinous Podcast with Carmen Spaniola.
Hi there, and welcome to the Numinous Podcast, where we have interesting conversations with everyday folks about the mystery of life. This podcast is a complement to the Numinous School, an online intuition development course for people who want their self-awareness to serve a greater good. I'm your host, Carmen Spaniola, and this week I'm so pleased to welcome my friend and my mentor, Tad Hargrave. This episode will be particularly interesting for all the holistic practitioners out there because Tad is the owner of Marketing for Hippies. He's an amazing marketing trainer and educator. I've done his workshop many times, and it kind of reminds me of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. You go to a workshop with Tad and you know you're learning about marketing, but you feel like you're learning about yourself, your soul, and how to be a better citizen of the world. In this interview, Tad talks about marketing, healing, authenticity, and a truly sustainable economy. I think you'll find it really interesting. I joined Tad over Skype. He was at home in Edmonton, Alberta. So Tad, tell me, in your opinion, what really good marketing is.
Oh, wow. Really good marketing. It doesn't feel like what most people would associate with marketing. I think what most people associate with marketing has a very cold, sterile, manipulative, pushy, exploitive, kind of crass feeling to it. And I feel like when people think about marketing, we're often thinking about it as something that is sort of done to us, or if we're doing it, it's something that we have to do to other people. And so the direction of it is it's coming from me out to the people who I'm marketing to. And that often renders the potential buyers, the marketplace, as sort of like inert object who we need to act on. That if we don't do something, they're not going to buy from us or from anybody. And so we have to be marketing. And what we can forget in that is that they're looking for solutions to their problems themselves. They're actually very active. They're not passive at all. There's the old adage that people love shopping. People just hate being sold to. And so to me, really good marketing honors the fact that people are already out there looking for something. And makes it very easy for them to find it and safe for them to check it out to see if it's a fit. And sort of underneath that, I think bad marketing comes from the agenda to get people to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the core driver of it. And it's explicitly said in a lot of sales and marketing. If you didn't close them on the possibility of buying, they closed you on their limitations. And, and even the idea of closing, that whole language of like we're closing something as opposed to opening a conversation. So I feel like that's the agenda of bad marketing. And good marketing has three kind of agendas to it. And the first is just to get people's attention. The second is to establish if it's a fit or not. And third is to lower the risk of taking a step and checking it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So in my practice, and I know in your work, because you've defined your niche so well, the two of us end up working with a lot of coaches and teachers and yogis and healers and people for whom building their practice or getting their work out into the world really cuts close to the bone because it's so closely identified with who they are, like they are bringing forth the greater purpose. And so there is this icky feeling about having to talk about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It brings up a lot of vulnerability, and also the tension between, well, is that my ego, and all of that. So I wonder about how you, as a teacher and practitioner, have handled how people's stuff comes up when all they're trying to do is like write a sales page. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, tell me just a little bit about what that's like for you as a teacher, with people, really encountering themselves and their shadow and their vulnerability in their business.
Yeah. I send them to people like you. um, yeah, I mean, I kind of joke. I don't feel like that's my particular strong suit, is working with people through the depths of that. Um, and my sort of it does come up a lot, and I think this is part of the fact that it comes up at all is an indication of a number of things. The first thing it's an indication of is it's just not natural to brag about yourself a lot. Just who does that? Who would walk around being like, I'm the best, It's really natural to brag about our friends. If you were at a party and I was, oh my God, this is Carmen. She's so amazing. That would seem lovely, that somebody is bragging about their friend. But if I was like at a party and I was like, yeah, I'm Tad. I run marketing for hippies. It's a big deal. Why don't you sit down? I'll tell you. It just feels so gross. So I think that's the first thing it's an indication of, and there's a very natural response, um, because we don't want to be considered braggarts, and we don't want to be turning all these social situations into selling situations. So I think that's a very human, normal, appropriate response. I'm glad that people feel that way about it. But there are definitely deeper cuts to it, of ways that notions of deserving have shown up in this culture and in business. And it's like charging what you deserve, and pitches like, if you don't sign up for this program, then maybe you don't think you're worth $10,000. So this notion of deserving gets brought into it, and it really complicates everything emotionally. So when somebody's like trying to figure out what to charge, it becomes this whole like, oh my God, well, maybe I don't think I'm worth that, and shouldn't I think I'm worth that? And so trying to figure out a price based on what I'm worth as a human being is very tricky and painful, and just I don't think the right direction to go. And
Actually,
then the
I
fourth,
want to just like shout out quickly before we move on that you wrote a fabulous blog post about this, why charging
yeah,
what you're worth is bullshit. And I read it and was like, wow, that friend speaks my mind. It was really well done. Sorry to interrupt. So what's the second thing?
well, so the other thing is that, um, Mark Silver, our mutual colleague, talks about this a lot, about how much heavier all these decisions get when we think it's about our life purpose. And he comes from a Sufi tradition, and from that tradition, our only purpose in life is to keep opening our hearts wider. Like, that's it. And everything else is just sort of what we do during the daytime. And so people will, around conversations around niche or around offerings, we can take it very personally and be like, oh, is this, yeah, my life purpose? Is this? Um, and I think it can actually be useful to sort of pull some things apart a little bit and be like, well, maybe our purpose is actually something bigger and grander than could ever really be encapsulated in a business. Um, and maybe our purpose doesn't depend on a certain business succeeding. Like, that the whole business could fail and we would still be successful in our purpose. Um, so there's that. And then there's this other place where, yeah, we're putting ourselves out and risking rejection. And yet this is where it can really be sort of a path of personal growth. But um, we actually want to court rejection, because what happens is people will, out of the desire to avoid being rejected, will become very neutral because they don't want to offend anyone. They don't want to push anyone away. So they, stop being themselves. They stop saying what they really think. And that is very neutral, and it doesn't offend anyone, but it also doesn't draw anyone in. Um, and
Yeah.
that often, people have a lot of, there's some clients that the potential clients they meet who are just immediately a yes to them, just like, oh my God, I want to work with you. Some are just a no. It's like, oh my God, you're a quack. And they just no chance they're going to work with them. But there's a lot that are maybe, and it's usually like 60 to 80% of potential clients are just maybes. And they're maybes because we're not being vulnerable. We're not being honest about who we are. So, it's like if the role of marketing is to just get people to say yes, then I don't need to be vulnerable. I just need more marketing tactics and more pushiness. But if the role of marketing is to help establish if there's a fit or not, I need to be really vulnerable. And like it's so funny, actually. I give your example at my workshops a lot these days of, you had if I think for the mentoring on your sales page, and you had the, here's how you would know if you're a fit. Da, da, da. Here's how you'd know if you're not a fit. And one of them was if you believe in a spiritual hierarchy and ascended masters and theosophy and all that, we're probably not going to be a fit. And that really risks rejection. And not even risk it, courts it. You're asking for it.
Mm-hmm.
You're being like, if you just know who's a fit for you and who's not. And this is the whole idea of like niching. Like, yeah, niching is finding our role in the community, finding our role in the ecosystem. And um, there's a particular role that we have. We can't be everything to everybody. And so, and we can't reach everyone. Not everyone is going to be an ideal client for us. Not everyone is going to be a fit. And so instead of wasting time around that, instead of spending a lot of time with, because people will trick themselves. They'll be like, oh man, I got so many people in the pipeline. That's great. But what they mean is I've got so many maybes.
Right.
And those maybes, the two truths about maybes is one, maybes never buy. Um, and number two, they almost always turn into no's
Mm.
in the end, because eventually they meet somebody who they're a yes to.
Right.
In the no
And I
category. So,
think you could say that too, even just about opportunity. Like,
oh
even
yeah.
if you're not a person in business, as you are moving through your life and you are equivocating all the time or trying to be all things to all people, or, how many roles are you fulfilling in your life where it doesn't really feel like the best fit? I can see how this could superimpose onto life presenting you with lots of opportunities that are just maybes, and none of them are ever really going to feel like that soul satisfying role that you're fulfilling, or project that you're doing, or whether it's a job or a role like taking a year out to parent, or whatever it is. It's like when you're equivocating all the time and
Yeah.
not really, planting your stake in the ground and saying, this is who I am and this is what I stand for, life does sort of present you with kind of a meandering wish-wash of maybe opportunities. Whereas I think when you plant your stake in the ground, life rises to meet you and presents you with things that are just a much closer fit. And I
I
think,
love that.
this is why I think anybody could do like a Tad Hargrave marketing for hippies course and like come out feeling spiritually and personally improved.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, yeah, lots of things that your courses and publications and things that you put out, I'm always like, I know I don't, sort of need that because I've done his workshop many times, but I just want to do it because it feels good. And
Oh,
actually, that brings me to the next point. I heard you say in the very first workshop I took with you many years ago, sometimes the acknowledgement is the healing. And
yeah.
that's a line that I've used in workshops and, one-on-one with clients many times. It's a philosophy that I've really embraced, that sometimes the acknowledgement is the healing. And marketing can be like that when you acknowledge for somebody that you've been there, or, you make yourself vulnerable and say, I know how you feel, and it probably feels like this. I know because I've experienced that. But I wonder if you really think, like after all the years you've been in marketing and teaching this work, do you really think marketing can change the world? Like, really, do you really think that marketing can be healing?
Oh, man. I think, man, that's a
It's
there's a lot of
existential.
levels to that question. Well,
Yeah.
because marketing happens in a context, and that context is the economy. Um, without sort of the economy, there wouldn't be marketing as we know it. And the economy that we have, the majority of it is, David Corton talks about the suicide economy, and it's destroying everything, and it's going to kill itself in the process. And it really is the majority. In the United States, I think maybe only 2% of the farmland is organic. Out of all the coffee grown in the world, maybe 2 or 3% is fair trade, and the rest is just conventional. So sometimes we get in our sort of hippie bubbles and we forget that the vast majority of the culture does not shop organic and couldn't even afford to. Um, so that's the overall context we're in. And anything that lubricates the machine of that is not going to be good for the world. But there's something beyond that, of course. There's this sort of more green, conscious economy. And anything that moves us in that direction is going to help reduce the violence and help reduce the destruction. I don't believe that what we're seeing right now is like the green economy is actually sustainable, but I do think it's less violent.
Mm.
Um, and I think that the way of life that's really actually sustainable is something beyond the green or conscious economy, and it much more resembles an indigenous lifestyle. Um, and so I see that this rise towards this green conscious economy is it's a good means, but it's a terrible ends.
Mm-hmm.
I often think about it, it's like the suicide economy is like somebody's being beaten 7 times a week every day, and the conscious economy is just like once a week.
Right.
But it's hard to call that a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's less terrible,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to acknowledge that. We've got to acknowledge, yes, that is less bad. And um, if we were to just come onto a fresh planet and put in a green economy, that would destroy a lot of that planet
Mm-hmm.
too. Because you need the metal for the copper wiring for the solar. You need to mine metals for the wind power. You need to. So to me, and I'm drawn way more. I feel like in this, whatever's beyond this kind of green economy would also resonate a lot more with Charles Eisenstein's work, the book Sacred Economics. This idea of the gift economy, the whole notion of money. I mean, we've got money now, so it's a strategy we're using to get our needs met. But for my ancestors in the Highlands of Scotland, money came in relatively recently, and it just wasn't used. There were no inns or taverns. There was the Cayley House, and that was the place everyone went for parties to celebrate. And when the inns and taverns came in, and if people came into your area, they were just housed. There was an incredible the principle of hospitality was paramount. Even if your worst enemy showed up and needed a place, you would give him a place.
Mm.
There was I can't remember the two clans involved, but there was a story where there was one clan that was housing another clan, and during the night there was a murder of the hosting clan. So somebody from the visiting clan had murdered somebody in the hosting clan, and the murder wasn't the terrible thing. I mean, it was terrible, but that wasn't really the issue. The real issue was that it had happened under the laws of hospitality.
Mm.
And to this day, hundreds of years later, that clan still has a bit of a black mark on it because that happened. So, it's like there wasn't money. And money came in and people were very suspicious of it and just like, why do we need this? Because we would just take care of each other. So the economy that we have, the existence of money as this abstract measure of value, um, all of that, I think, has problems associated with it. And I think the marketing is really important right now in terms of a transition to something less bad. But no, I don't think that ultimately marketing is going to heal the world. I think marketing can help a transition into a world where marketing isn't even something that's needed.
Yes, that's beautiful. I really like that thought. And I've been thinking a lot about this sort of meantime work, and it's interesting you have a program called The Meantime, and
Yeah.
if you kind of expand that out, it's like, okay, so this is what we're all doing in the meantime, but what we're really hoping to do is move beyond even this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that idea.
I mean,
Okay.
it's like a allopathic medicine, you know. I mean, God bless it. And there's certain things that you need to do during trauma to keep somebody alive, but it's not what they need for the rest of their life. We're doing that just as an intervention,
Right.
you know, and certain things, you know, physio. You don't go to physio for the rest of your life necessarily. You do it so you can walk again. And we are a culture that has a lot of brokenness in it, and um, we need to transition. And so I feel like the green economy is sort of the physio of, you know, it's like building up some strengths and relocalizing things and refamiliarizing ourselves with certain things. Um, yeah, because we are not ready, most of us. I'm not, you know, to just jump back into like a more traditional lifestyle.
Oh yeah, no. And there is so much healing to be done, just as you sort of implied that there is you know, the broken bones that need to be mended. And that's what I found when I first went to your workshop, was that it was like, wow, there is space for soul in my, even in how I build my practice, my private practice, you know, there that I did find that there were a lot of healing elements to being able to approach how I offer myself to the world. And so yeah, it isn't healing the world, but it's definitely healing my relationship with how I offer myself to the world.
Well, and it's that to me, the potential for healing is that most of us in our lives are very used to being manipulated. We're very used to being, and not just by marketing, by family, by teachers, by friends. We're used to a certain level of coercion and pushing that does not honor our sovereignty, that does not honor our choice, and that just, um, yeah, treats us as objects to be exploited. And there's a way of doing marketing that doesn't do that. There's a way of doing marketing that is actually so profoundly honoring and respectful that it reminds people that they're worthy of honor and respect. And that can be a very healing moment for people. But I don't know if it's any more healing than just the everyday kindnesses we can give to each other. You know, when you let somebody in and they give you in when you're driving and they give you a little wave, or somebody, you know, smiles at you on the street, or the random acts of kindness we can do. Every one of those moments reminds us of like, oh yeah, people are good and I'm good, I'm worth goodness, you know. So marketing done well can do that, you know, but just like everything else can too.
When you send out newsletters, you do a really good job of that, where you always include a funny video or something uplifting. And if anybody follows you on social media, they would see that you're rarely talking about your own products and programs. You're usually offering those bits of brilliance and
Right.
little spots of happiness during the day. And people probably don't know, many people probably don't know that you're a very accomplished improv actor and also a close-up magician.
Mm-hmm.
And when people show up at your workshops, they might also be surprised that you're like a encyclopedia of jokes. So could you just give me like a marketing joke?
A marketing joke. Oh man. Uh, I don't know if I have any marketing jokes. Oh, this is so appalling.
Okay,
I'm
how about a
catching.
hippie joke?
I got all the hippie jokes.
Yeah.
Um, do you know why the lifeguard didn't save the hippie?
Why?
He was too far out, man.
What about a hipster joke? You have all the hipster jokes too.
Oh, I got a few now. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've heard the new hipster joke. I've got it on vinyl. The um, do you know how the hipster burned his mouth?
How did the hipster burn his mouth?
Yeah, he ate the pizza before it was cool.
Poor hipsters. Okay, last question on the Numinous podcast. We always end with a question from the Proust questionnaire. So, Tad Hargrave, what do you consider perfect happiness?
I mean, the phrase that comes to mind is just that not thinking that things should be any different than they are.
That sounds peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for having this conversation with me. I'm so glad I have one recorded for posterity.
Perfect. Me too.
Personally, I really don't think it matters if you are a holistic practitioner or a heart-centered entrepreneur, or if you work as a communications officer in a very large multinational corporation. I think what Tad is talking about and his take on communications is so important. If it resonates with you, I highly encourage you read marketingforhippies.com. And you can even take Tad's introductory workshop online now with great video, very engaging, very charming guy, and very thorough. You'll learn a ton. I want to thank Tad for coming on the show, and I want to thank you so much for listening. This is a shout out to the people listening in Trinidad and Tobago. What are you guys even doing? You're blowing my mind. It's so awesome to see you downloading. Thank you. Thank you so much. And please share this show far and wide if you liked it, because you never know who needs to hear it right now. I also want to thank sincerely Lisa Larder, who left a review on iTunes Canada saying, Carmen is a great interviewer and spiritual advisor. I love listening to her podcast. Thanks, Lisa. I love that you're listening. And also DIY73, who said, Carmen takes us on a journey across spiritual experience. She talks to atheists and the devout. She holds as much reverence for the people sharing their experiences as she does for the divine. Wonderful. Is so eloquent. Thank you for taking the time, DIY73. Thank you, really, sincerely, bottom of my heart. If you would like to get more information about Tad, then please go to my website, carmenspagnola.com, to check out the show notes. CarmenSpagnola. You'll find out more about all of his programs. There's a link there for that great blog post that he wrote called Why Charging What You're Worth is Bullshit. I highly recommend it. And also, I'll put a link to our mutual friend Mark Silver and his business, The Heart of Business. If you'd like to keep exploring the great mystery of life with me, you can check out the Numinous School, my online intuition development course. While you're there, sign up for my monthly email newsletter. You'll instantly receive a meditation download, and you'll get something free from me every month. Until next time, take care.